Can you imagine if Lexus built its own version of the Toyota GR Corolla with the amazing 1.6-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine? Well, that is exactly what Lexus did in this special version of the Lexus LBX. Let's find out more about this.
Hi everyone, it's David at Automotive Press. Lots of exciting things going on, but today I want to bring to you an interesting interview with one of the chief engineers of a major product, which is the Lexus LBX we see in the background. And I know that car is not sold in North America, but it is sold worldwide, and who knows, at some point it might come to North America. So I get to have a bit of an inside scoop and a special sharing of knowledge by the chief engineer. I'm going to speak to him in Japanese, he'll respond back in Japanese, then I'll translate and explain that to you guys in English, so we'll go back and forth, but it's going to give us a lot of interesting insight about the engineering behind what happens with some new products from Lexus and Toyota. So let's get right into it. Welcome back. So here we are at the Auto Salon. We're in front of our chief engineer for Lexus LBX, but this is not your normal LBX. This is actually called the Morizo RR concept. In case you didn't know, Morizo is a nickname that Akio Toyoda has given himself when he talks about Gazoo racing or racing in general. And he was here today to present the future of Toyota and the future of Lexus, what that looks like. And he has introduced a bunch of cars, including this one. So I'm going to go ahead and ask our chief engineer what this is all about, talk about the car, but also talk about the future of what's happening in internal combustion engine world, which might change quite a bit in the future. はじめまして。
はい、よろしくお願いします。
デビッドと申します。簡単に自己紹介していただけますか。
はい、LBX 担当しておりますチーフエンジニアの遠藤と申します。
遠藤さん、
よろしくお願いします。
So as most of you guys probably know, Japanese chief engineers are always very humble and they don't want to talk about their background too much, but he already has a very impressive record. Joined Toyota in 1994 in the product development for 20 years, and I'm going to ask him some interesting questions. So what you might not realize is that this LBX doesn't look all that different from a normal LBX, but it has the heart and soul of, believe it or not, GR Yaris. And you heard it right. What they've done is that even though this is a Lexus model, they've actually transplanted the engine and the transmission from GR Yaris, which is a 1.6-liter 3-cylinder turbocharged engine, and planted right into this LBX. So it's a very special car that may not become available in the future, but give you a glimpse into what is possible when you combine Lexus with Toyota Gazoo racing. Because as you know, that is not normally marriage that takes place. Normally, Lexus and Toyota has kept separate in terms of racing heritage, but for the first time, they've actually asked Gazoo Racing to work with Lexus to come up with this concept. And so I think it's a really interesting concept that they've taken a beautiful engine from GR Yaris, which is a highly priced, highly respected powertrain, and that engine, along with the 8-speed automatic transmission, which is now available as well, have been added to this LBX. Now we're going to talk about the suspension, but also the tires as well. The original LBX comes with 225s in 18-inch format, but this one has a high-performance version, which is a 235, 45/19, so very low profile, wider as well, and larger by an inch. And that aggressive stance gives it that flavor that we didn't get before with LBX. You can see the offset is quite aggressive. The tires are almost sticking out of the fenders, giving it a very low stance. But also they had to retune the suspension system to make sure that the new tires and the new performance package goes along with that. So you can just imagine how good this thing might drive on the road because of the upgraded suspension, upgraded tires and wheels. Now one thing that's interesting is that we talked about 8-speed automatic transmission on this LBX, the special version anyway. And in case you didn't realize, they just announced the facelifted version of the GR Yaris, which for the first time is offering automatic transmission. That wasn't the case before. It was always with a manual. And that transmission is the one that's been transplanted to this LBX. So not only is this LBX getting the engine and the suspension pieces and all that upgrade, it's also getting this automatic transmission from the GR Yaris, which is just happening for the first time. But at the same time, because GR Yaris has a manual transmission, or he always had a manual transmission, he wanted to stress the fact that this LBX want to maintain the performance image and feel. So it's going to offer a manual transmission as well if this concept becomes an actual real model for sale. I did ask about whether this model will indeed come out as a production model, and while they're still developing it and figuring that out, I asked, could we dream about buying this vehicle in this format as a high performance model? He said you definitely can. So I think there's a big hint there that they're working toward an LBX. Maybe it'll be called the Morizo concept. It's actually called Morizo RR concept, and we can only maybe dream that day when it becomes available. And it will be even more wonderful if that model becomes available in North America, or otherwise I may have to just move to Japan and buy it here as well. Let me ask a little bit more question. Okay, I'm going to add some more interesting tidbit here. As I mentioned to you, the GR Yaris has announced availability of automatic transmission for the first time, not yet announced for GR Corolla, and they can't deny or confirm whether it will happen for GR Corolla as well. I suspect it might, but the interesting thing is that you can basically think of LBX as an inherited brother or cousin of the GR Yaris and GR Corolla, and that means it has also inherited the four-wheel drive from those two models as well, which is very meaningful because normally this is not an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive model. So basically, everything to do with GR Yaris or even GR Corolla, if you want to think of it that way, has been transplanted onto this LBX, making it extremely special. But what he emphasizes is that it is also keeping the theme and the feel of a Lexus, so they don't want to compromise anything to do with refinement and smoothness and even maybe some level of comfort. And that's why this is a very special model, because it's able to perform like a GR Yaris or GR Corolla, but maintain the Lexus feel. And I think that makes it a very unique model. Finally, the LBX also has revised steering mechanism and calibration, and also tuning of the software to provide a bit more direct feedback. The basic components are the same, but they have tuned it in such a way that it gives you a little bit more feedback from the road. And he said that even the actual seating height has been lowered by 10 millimeter so that it gives you a little bit more of that sports car feel. So they've taken into account all the details to make the LBX, or this version of LBX, very special as a performance model, and I can't wait to maybe have a chance to drive it at some point in the future. Once again, I'm really hoping, finger crossed, that at some point LBX will show up to North America, or at least in Canada, because we like small cars over there. And those are very interesting stories. So let me ask you one final question, and we're going to wrap up for the day. So the last point I want to talk about is also an important one, which is basically the concept of how Lexus and Toyota are redesigning and developing new models. It used to be in the traditional way, the designers come up with a fancy concept or ideas, then they hand it over to engineering to come up with actual details and structures and so forth. But because it's not always possible to design a vehicle that looks like a concept, they'll come back and say, hey, these are things we can't do, these are things you have to change, and back and forth, they'll continue to work and collaborate. That was the old-fashioned way. But now what they're saying is that at Lexus, the designer lead the way. So they come up with an interesting, awesome design, and now the engineering and also the manufacturing system have to work to make that design come alive without compromising. And that is a big change from a traditional method where they have to constantly go back and forth, and both parties has to compromise. But now what he's saying is that design leads the way, it dictates everything else for the life of that car, and then the product development engineering and the following manufacturing engineering group as well have to work through to make sure that the design is kept alive and it's not compromised. And he said that is a huge change from what happened before, which means the future Lexus models and perhaps Toyota cars as well will maintain a design theme that is very unique and different from before, because they can be more aggressive and unusual, and they can be maybe world-class in some way, and not to be wrongly influenced by engineering constraints. And I should know that because I used to work as a product development manufacturing engineer in the past, and I know how much of the compromise can impact design. So it's really good to hear that Lexus is leading the way and allowing the design to take shape while the rest of the engineering group has to follow suit. And I think that's a beautiful concept that I'm sure will dictate the future of Lexus design. And so we can look forward to more interesting cars and more interesting designs in the future. Let's thank our Chief Engineer Endo-san for a good time with us, and we're going to say goodbye after that. どうもお疲れ様でした。ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
またよろしくお願いします。
ありがとうございました。
Goodbye everyone. Peace out.